Do I know? I must be wrong. I must be wrong. Probably it was probably Biden or the other one that said, "Screw him, don't give him the glass." Oh, you don't think? Let me tell you. I'll tell you what. Secret Service guys were very brave when I got shot. They stood right in the line of fire. And I don't want to speak out of school, but I can say from the time I got elected, these guys were fighting for more help, for more people like you have up there, great people. But they were fighting for more, 11 times or so. They said no to...
Welcome to this special edition of Vantage. We are coming to you live from the White House. Behind me you can see the presidential mansion. This is what it's all about, the biggest prize in American politics. Come January and it will have a new president. Will it be Kamala Harris or Donald Trump? That's what we are here to find out. Now this part of the White House is called the North Lawn. It has a very special place in presidential traditions. When a state guest arrives at the White House, this is where the ceremonial welcome happens. It's usually packed on those days, but even now there's a buzz around here, a feeling of tension and fervor. We expect that to increase in the next hour or two because President Biden is heading back here. He's in his hometown right now. He's not at the White House, but in the next hour or two, he's expected to be back. Like all Americans, he will be glued to the television tomorrow because Tuesday is the big election day, the day of voting. Technically, we can have a winner by tomorrow night, but a lot of Americans voted early this time. They sent in mail-in ballots and postal votes. So it could take a bit longer. But don't worry, we'll be right here throughout the week covering the results. So make sure you tune in every day. We've got a packed show lined up for you tonight. We're looking at how Washington is preparing for Election Day, what sort of security measures are in place, and we also attended a women's march yesterday. We'll tell you what women voters are looking for this time and who is leading the merchandise race. From Trump hats to Harris badges, it's all being sold in Washington and across the country indeed. And what does it say about the ground sentiment? All this and more lined up for you. First, the headlines. China continues its saber rattling. Taiwan detects 44 aircraft, 6 Navy vessels and 1 ship from Beijing around it. Many of these jets reportedly crossed the median line of Taiwan Strait. This incident comes amid escalating regional tensions as Beijing ups its ante over the self-ruled island. Turkey sacks 3 mayors in the Kurdish-majority southeast on alleged terrorism charges. This is despite Ankara's efforts to seek a rapprochement with the Kurdish community. All 3 mayors belong to the main pro-Kurdish party. Kurds make up around 20% of Turkey's overall population. Chaos in the newly elected Jammu and Kashmir Assembly on its first day after a People's Democratic Party leader moved a resolution against the scrapping of Article 370. This led to BJP lawmakers protesting against the move. In 2019, Jammu and Kashmir lost its special status and was bifurcated into 2 union territories. The European Union welcomes the re-election of Moldova's pro-European president. She won in a tense vote on Sunday. The election was overshadowed by allegations of Russian meddling. It took place just 2 weeks after a referendum in which Moldovans voted by a razor-thin margin to back joining the EU. And a volcano erupts in eastern Indonesia, killing at least 10 people and spewing fireballs and ash on surrounding villages. Some wooden homes even caught fire. Several people have been evacuated. Indonesia experiences frequent volcanic eruptions due to its position on the Pacific Ring of Fire. It's the final stretch here in the United States. Less than 48 hours left until polls close, until a new president is elected. Americans will be lining up to vote at polling booths tomorrow, but a lot of them have already voted. More than 77 million of them. How? Through early voting. Here in America, you can request a ballot on mail. You can then fill it up, select your candidate, and then drop it off in ballot boxes or even mail them via postal services. More than 77 million Americans have done it so far. That's around 48% of the total turnout in the last election. They've already voted. So clearly, early voting is the future. In 2020, the Democrats dominated this field, but this time Republicans have caught up, mainly because Donald Trump has changed his position on this. Last time he opposed early voting, this time he's supporting it. Around 38% of early voting has been done by the Democrats, and Republicans are at 36.2%. So the gap is pretty narrow. Now we come to the opinion polls. Who is leading and by how much? Well, Harris has a narrow edge over Trump in the national polls, but like we've said, that doesn't really matter. It comes down to the electoral college, to the swing states, the 7 swing states. Let's look at the situation there. Harris is leading in Nevada by 3 points. She's leading in North Carolina by 2 points, in Wisconsin by 2 points, and in Georgia by 1 point. In Pennsylvania and Michigan, things are even, and in Arizona, Trump leads by 4 points. Now, these numbers make a couple of things quite clear. One, Harris has found some momentum, some new momentum. Apparently, last-minute undecided voters are picking her. And two, Donald Trump is also consolidating. Harris may hold the edge among early voters, but on Tuesday, it's all about in-person voting, and that remains Donald Trump's core. Which brings us to the campaigns. Both Harris and Trump are hitting the swing states. Harris spent a lot of time in Michigan. Meanwhile, Trump spoke in North Carolina and Georgia. As I said, this is the final stretch. Most voters must have already made up their minds. So it's all about the finishing touches now. Kamala Harris focused on the Muslim vote. Michigan is home to around 200,000 Arab Americans. They put Joe Biden over the line in 2020. They helped him win. But this time, it's not a guarantee. Arab Americans are angry about Biden's support to Israel in the Gaza war. And Harris may have to pay the price for it. She tried to do some damage control on Sunday. She promised to end the Gaza war if elected.
I want to say this year has been difficult, given the scale of death and destruction in Gaza, and given the civilian casualties and displacement in Lebanon. It is devastating. And as president, I will do everything in my power to end the war in Gaza, to bring home the hostages, end the suffering in Gaza, ensure Israel is secure, and ensure the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, freedom, security, and self-determination.
Beyond that, she stuck to the script. She accused Donald Trump of dividing America, promised to fight hate politics, and to resolve the cost of living crisis. Strange, because she's already vice president. And that's been a struggle for Harris, really. She's a member of the current administration, but the current administration is deeply unpopular. Biden's approval ratings are at 39%, so Harris finds herself in a spot of bother. She can't criticize her own government, but she can also not embrace it. So Kamala Harris has opted for middle ground. She's not calling for new leadership. She's calling for a new generation of leadership.
It is time for a new generation of leadership in America. And I am ready to offer that leadership as the next president of the United States of America.
On the other side, Trump did what Trump does. He held a number of rallies on Sunday. Most of them had the same theme: America is a broken country, only he can fix it. It's a strategy that worked for him in 2016. It's finding even more takers this time around, it seems, because of the cost of living crisis. Trump's campaign is mostly centered around two issues: tariffs and immigration. We saw that again on Sunday.
The United States is now an occupied country. Can you imagine having to say, we're an occupied country? But it will soon be an occupied country no longer. On November 5th, 2024, it will be Liberation Day in America. On day one, I will launch the largest deportation program of criminals in American history. I will rescue every city and town that has been invaded and conquered, and we will put the vicious and bloodthirsty criminals in jail or kick them the hell out of our country.
Some extreme rhetoric there, but clearly America likes it. Donald Trump also trained his guns on pollsters and journalists, quite literally. You see, Trump was surrounded by bulletproof glass at the rally, but those glasses had gaps. Trump said he wasn't worried, though, because to get to him, an assassin would have to shoot through the press corps, and Trump says he doesn't mind that.
I have a piece of glass over here, and I don't have a piece of glass there, and I have this piece of glass here, but all we have really over here is the fake news, right? And to get me, somebody would have to shoot through the fake news, and I don't mind that so much, because I don't mind.
Trump also took issue with a new poll. It says Kamala Harris is leading him in the state of Iowa. The poll has surprised a lot of people because Iowa voted for Trump in 2016 and again in 2020. The last Democrat to flip it was Barack Obama. If Harris does that, it would be a big setback to Donald Trump. Of course, his campaign has rejected this poll. They say it's an attempt to demoralize voters. And frankly, there's a lot of that going on this time around, especially on social media. Hundreds of posts are spreading fake news about the election. Most of them are Trump supporters, but some are Democrats too. And why are they doing this? To destroy the credibility of the election process. Around 70% Americans think that Donald Trump will not concede if he loses, that he will question the results like he did the last time. His supporters are laying the groundwork for that. Let me show you some examples. This video is from Pennsylvania. An influencer filmed a man dropping off a large number of ballots. He said the whole thing was suspicious. But guess what? The man was a postmaster. His job is to drop off ballots. A lot of accounts also posted pictures with this caption: I live in Canada, but I drove down to vote. The idea is to say that even Canadians are voting for Harris. Again, it's a false claim. That first video was debunked by poll officials, but not before it got 6 million views. Plus, it is unnecessary work for the election officials. They must conduct fair elections. At the same time, they must also bust fake news. Why can't social media platforms pitch in? Because they are part of the problem, especially Elon Musk and X. He is the most followed person on his platform, and he is pushing fake news. Elon Musk says Democrats are making illegal migrants vote. He also said if Trump is not elected, this will be the last US election. Again, fake news and dangerous rhetoric. Of course, if Trump wins, none of this will matter. But if he doesn't, expect nervous days for America. One reason for that nervousness is what happened in January 2021, the Capitol riots, the day when America's Parliament building was overrun. You can feel that nervousness here. We've been going around Washington, D.C. over the last few days. Things are certainly different. For starters, we've seen a lot more fences. Even the sidewalks near the White House have been cordoned off. We saw a lot more security presence too. The people we spoke to are also worried. They have businesses here. Their children go to school here. So the possibility of violence is very scary. Take a look at how Washington is preparing, or rather bracing, for Election Day. Welcome to Washington, D.C. Just a couple of days until this town gets a new chief. Or rather, a commander-in-chief. Elections usually bring excitement and energy, a feeling of change and hope. But around here, the mood is a bit different. Yes, people are concerned about the results, but they're more concerned about what happens after. This is the Capitol Hill. You may remember what happened here the last time. Hundreds of Trump supporters breached security and stormed this building. They were refusing to accept that Donald Trump had lost the election. So senators and members of Congress had to be rushed to safe rooms and bunkers. Now we have another election involving Donald Trump, and everyone has the same question on their mind. If he loses, will there be another attack? Authorities are working to ensure that doesn't happen. For starters, security has been increased. Most of the popular protest sites have been fenced. Nearly 2,100 officers have been deployed. That's 300 more than January 2021. The hope is any fallout will be contained. Near the White House, similar arrangements are in place. The The Lafayette Park is partially closed. So are the sidewalks near the White House. Officials are not taking any chances. They want constitutional centers to be safe in case things go south. Washington's governor is also on the job. He has activated some of the National Guards. Think of them as paramilitary forces. Each US state has National Guards stationed inside, sort of like backup for the army. In Washington, these troops have been put on standby. All that security may sound good on paper, but it only adds to the worries for the residents of the city. They got a taste of the violence in 2017 when Donald Trump was inaugurated as president. Hundreds of people took over Washington to the chants of "Not my president." Then they got the shock of their lives in 2021 when the Capitol riots happened. And now the people of Washington say that they're scared and nervous. A lot of businesses have boarded up their storefronts, fearing riots or violent protests. These are the people at the forefront of America's political divide. If the election is close, things may turn worse. Chances are candidates will approach the Supreme Court, another institution based in Washington. A legal battle is likely to bring a flood of supporters from both sides. A scenario that doesn't read well. Any violence will affect the locals in many ways. Their businesses are on the firing line. Roads may get closed, schools and offices could be shut, and police presence could turn the city into a fortress.
It's a sad state for the democracy in the United States. Why should freedom have to protect your own property when you disagree with somebody? Doesn't make any sense.
We all knows what happened when things doesn't go Trump's way. He incites his followers to protest in violent ways, and I think it's smart. I actually work a couple of blocks down in a government building, and I don't want to come to work on Tuesday. I think it's going to be hectic and crazy. I wish we would be off.
For officials, this is a tough choice. You can't stop supporters from holding peaceful protests. But how do you ensure the situation does not descend into chaos? This is the National Mall. This is the long shot of Washington, D.C. that you see in most Hollywood films. And these are the grounds where some of this country's historic protests and campaigns have unfolded. This place is open to peaceful demonstrations, but you need permission first. So far, at least 9 groups have applied, most of them left-leaning. And this is where the authorities face a dilemma. Do you give permission to opposing groups and risk a face-off? And if you deny permission to all, are you trampling on their right to protest? There are no easy choices as election day nears. Even afterwards, the danger isn't over. In the last election, the anger did not spill over immediately. It exploded weeks later on January 6th. So next week is merely the first in a series of challenges. The eyes of the world will be on Washington, D.C. The international press is here watching. The question is, what will we see? A peaceful transition of power or another crack in the foundation of US democracy? The race is a close one. Political ads are flooding the airwaves, and one such ad has stirred controversy. It shows a polling booth. A woman enters to vote. She looks at her husband nervously, then locks eyes with another woman. Both of them vote. They don't exchange any words, and finally they join their husbands. The ad doesn't really say very much, but the message is quite simple and clear. These two women cast secret votes. What's that? It's when you hide who you voted for. So the implication is that these women did not tell their husbands they voted secretly for Kamala Harris. And this did not go down well with the Trump campaign. They have slammed this advertisement. But the thing is, secret voting is not new. It's been happening for quite some time. And it's said to be quite widespread in this election. Look at this YouGov poll. 1 in 8 women say that they vote differently from their husbands, and they do it secretly. They don't tell their husbands about it. Nearly 5% women say that they refrain from voting to avoid a conflict with their husband. Which brings us to the historic gender divide in this year's election. It is shaping up to be a battle of the sexes. Donald Trump is popular among men. 53% say that they will vote for him. Kamala Harris is leading among the women voters. Nearly 54% women want her as president. So the gender gap is quite staggering. In fact, it's the largest since 1980. But what led to this wide gap? A lot of issues, perhaps none as big as abortion. For a lot of women, it is defining this election. And while some are resorting to secret voting, others are quite vocal about it. We saw this over the weekend at a women's march in Washington, D.C. Here's our report. Abortion rights. They've always been a point of contention in U.S. politics. But this year, they're at the forefront. This is the first U.S. presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. Women in America lost their national right to abortion. They lost the right over their own bodies.
My body, my choice!
And now they're out on the streets to fight for it. For millions of voters, reproductive rights could determine the next president of the United States. And they're making themselves seen and heard. This is Washington, D.C., the national capital and the center of all the political action. This is where hundreds of women have gathered for a march to rally for abortion rights. We are in the American capital where hundreds of feminists and reproductive rights activists have gathered just days before the election. This event is strategically timed along with the nationwide Get Out the Vote efforts. It's a powerful reminder of what's at stake in this election. To understand why abortion rights are such a pivotal issue today, we need to go back in history. In 1973, the U.S. Supreme Court gave a landmark ruling in a case called Roe versus Wade. It granted American women the constitutional right to abortion. But nearly 50 years later, in 2022, the Supreme Court overturned that precedent. So abortion was no longer a national right in the U.S. The power to regulate women's choices was back in the hands of individual states. Now, each state can decide whether women can abort unwanted pregnancies, at what stage, and under what conditions. Basically, access to abortion now depends on where you are in America. For example, here in Washington, D.C., abortion is allowed in all stages of pregnancy. But in Texas, it is illegal unless you are dying. So far, 17 American states have outlawed abortion. Some have very narrow exceptions. Like only in cases of rape, incest, or if a person's life is in danger. 8 other states allow limited access to the procedure. This is despite the fact that nearly 66% Americans support complete legal access to abortion.
Since 2016, we've been telling folks that this is the most consequential election of your lifetime, and each year it's been true, whether it's 2018, 2020, 2022, and more than ever in 2024, we are voting on freedom or fascism, and there's really no middle ground.
We got to stand up for democracy. We have to stand up for a woman's right to have control over her body, control over her life. Women's rights are human rights, and we were back in the hallways.
Which brings us to the presidential race. Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. Support for abortion rights will benefit the Democrats. Harris has been quite vocal about the issue. She has vowed to protect women's rights if elected. But she was part of the administration which was in power when Roe versus Wade was overturned. Her predecessor, Joe Biden himself, has not been as vocal about the issue because of his Catholic background. So critics question if Harris will be different. Meanwhile, Donald Trump appointed the 3 Supreme Court justices who played a crucial role in overturning Roe versus Wade. He also supports the idea of U.S. states governing abortion. Although in the last few months, he seems to have softened his stance. He called himself the father of IVF, that's in vitro fertilization. He also said that he would not push for a national abortion ban as president. As activists prepare to march past the White House today, their message is clear. They're watching. They want action from the next administration, from those in power. In fact, this is more than just a march, they say. This is a demand for accountability and a call for the next government to prioritize reproductive rights. With the presidential race deadlocked, abortion rights could be the deciding factor in crucial swing states. These are the 7 states that will decide who becomes president. Many activists here fear another Trump presidency and support Kamala Harris. But this may not translate into as many votes as the Democrats had expected.
I'm terrified. I'm terrified as to what's going to happen to this country and women's rights. This is the most election in our country's history, and I think a lot of Americans don't realize that. What's at stake?
A lot has changed in the United States since 2020, but everything has changed for the women of America. Abortion rights have become one of the most polarizing issues of this election. For women under 30, it's even more important than inflation, they say. So this march, right before the US presidential election, is a reminder that the fight for these women is not just political, it's also personal.
Since 2016.
Now let's look at another major electoral issue, the issue of illegal immigrants. Every single day, hundreds of migrants come into the US illegally. This happens every day. Normally, these immigrants are taken for processing. They are then given a chance to seek asylum. They have to wait for citizenship before they can enjoy the same rights as the locals, as American citizens. But that's not always the case. Some places in the US extend the right to vote to non-citizens as well, even illegal immigrants. And this has become a major issue in this election. We went down to the city of Tacoma Park in Maryland. It's a so-called sanctuary city, which gives non-citizens the right to vote. Here's what we saw. It's the final day of campaigning in Tacoma Park. The city council election is in full swing, and candidate Ambrose Agose is going old school. With pamphlets in hand, he is going door to door in the hope of winning over the last remaining undecided voters.
All type of community are supporting me: white, African, Black American, Indian, Spanish. Yes, I have all those communities supporting me.
Agose's campaign materials reflect his wide outreach. They are printed in several languages, including English, Spanish, and French, even Hindi. That's because he's not just seeking the votes of Americans, he's appealing to people from all parts of the world who live here, even illegally. This is Tacoma Park, a city in the US state of Maryland. This is on the outskirts of Washington, D.C. And Tacoma Park is unique because it allows non-US citizens to vote in local city-level elections. This is both legal US residents and illegal immigrants. They're all allowed to vote, and this is a right that was given to them way back in 1993. The idea was to involve all people in local decision-making and planning. Tacoma Park has been a sanctuary city for migrants since 1985. For decades, it has provided refuge to migrants of all kinds. Today, about 30% of the city's population is made up of migrants. Agose is aiming to win their support. He is running to represent Ward 6, where many migrants and non-citizens live. Agose says, even without citizenship, they must have a vote.
People who live here, they contribute building the city. So when it comes to the election, to give them chance also to express their voice.
A lot of Americans do not agree with this view, especially the Republicans and their leader Donald Trump. They believe, and perhaps rightly so, that allowing non-citizens to vote is a dangerous trend. Trump aims to abolish the idea of sanctuary cities altogether, and the Republican Party has been pushing for legislation to ensure this. Republicans like House Speaker Mike Johnson say that the non-citizen voting process is a clear and present danger. Why? Because they fear that this could ultimately change the makeup of the US Congress. Republicans have tried to bring in laws that restrict non-citizens from elections. Bills have been introduced in the US Congress that require proof of citizenship before you register to vote and restrict federal funding to cities like Tacoma Park. In fact, earlier this year, they also blocked a law that allowed non-citizens to vote in local elections in DC. Immigration was already a hot-button issue in this election. The idea of allowing non-citizens to vote has only intensified the debate. The concept itself is not new, though. Only a few cities allow non-citizens to vote, that too in just local elections. The turnout too remains extremely low, because illegal immigrants tend to not want to attract attention by turning up to vote. Yet, there have been cases of fraud. In Michigan, which is a battleground state, a Chinese student pretended to be a US citizen. He successfully cast a vote in the presidential election. Observers say such cases are rare. But in close polls where every vote counts, no side wants to take chances. Also, immigration has become a point of contention for American voters. 3 out of 5 Americans say it's a key issue. Some accuse illegal immigrants of taking away jobs. Others say immigrants use welfare services and unfairly take away American taxpayer money. There are also safety concerns. Migrants are accused of being criminals and of smuggling drugs into the country. Donald Trump has capitalized on this anti-immigrant sentiment. Trump says that November 5th will be Liberation Day if he is elected. He plans to crack down on illegal immigrants. He is pushing for mass deportations.
On day one, I will launch the largest deportation program of criminals in American history. It's going to be the largest deportation of criminals. We're going to get them out of here fast.
Trump wants to deport about 15 to 20 million illegal immigrants using a law from 1798 called the Alien Enemies Act. Reports show that 88% of all Republicans support this. They support mass deportations. Obviously, this has immigrants concerned.
A lot of us are scared because Trump says the first to be deported will be the Venezuelans. Understand?
Every 4 years it's terrifying. Of having the knowledge, of having to know where the ICE detention is. So if my husband gets taken, I know where to go, because it's terrifying having to tell my kids why we're voting a certain way, because those elections are so important of where their dad is, where their dad's status could end up.
The issue of immigration in America is too big for either party to ignore. Both Republicans and Democrats are promising to reduce the flow of illegal immigrants, but neither side has presented a concrete plan to fix the problem. Involving illegal immigrants in the democratic process and giving them the right to vote only complicates things further.
It has to do with a little bit of intelligence. And I have a piece of glass over here, and I don't have a piece of glass there. And I have this piece of glass here, but all we have really over here is the fake news, right? And to get me, somebody would have to shoot through the fake news. And I don't mind that so much, because I don't mind that. So I have a piece of glass here. And the problem with that glass is I don't look great on television when you have a 4-inch piece of glass that a howitzer can't go through. No, when you see yourself on television, you say, boy, you're really not very recognizable, to be honest with you, which is good. But here's the problem. So I have glass here, I have glass here. Now, I'm not worried about this. Look, what do I have? A couple of people. and they're friends generally. There are a couple of people I don't like in that group, but that's like, no, but look at it. Look at it. I have nobody here. What do I need this piece? But where I think I do need a piece is here. What the hell do I know? I must be wrong. I must be wrong. Probably it was probably Biden or the other one that said, screw him, don't give him the glass. Oh, you don't think? Let me tell you, I'll tell you what. Secret Service guys were very brave when I got shot. They stood right in the line of fire. And I don't want to speak out of school, but I can say from the time I got elected, these guys were fighting for more help.
Economy, abortion, immigration, the war in Gaza, all of these are key issues in this presidential battle. But right before Election Day, a new unlikely flashpoint has emerged. The death of a squirrel named Peanut. How did he die? Why is his death an election issue? And why do the Republicans say that they want justice? Let's start with Peanut's story. It begins around 7 years ago. His mother got hit by a car in New York City. She died. That's when a man named Mark Longo found him. He saw the accident, so he initially took in Peanut. It was supposed to be a temporary move. Mark cared for him like his own pet. This continued for about 8 months. After that, Mark released the squirrel. He thought Peanut was well enough to survive outdoors. But that did not last very long. Peanut apparently lacked survival skills. So he returned. Mark took him in again, and Peanut lived happily as an indoor squirrel. So the story goes. Soon the two started making videos. Peanut eating waffles, Peanut running around the house, Peanut dressed in hats. The internet loved the squirrel. And in no time, Peanut became viral. Right now, his Instagram has more than 670,000 followers. 670,000 followers for a squirrel. All was going well for both of them until last week. On October 30th, New York's DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation, raided Mark Longo's house. 6 officers showed up. They were acting on multiple anonymous complaints. It was about unsafe housing of wildlife. So they seized Peanut the squirrel. They also took a raccoon named Fred. Now, in New York, you cannot keep a wild animal without a license, so the arrest was legal. Even Mark Longo knew that. But he decided to fight it. He hired a legal team to get them back. He also gathered more than 20,000 signatures, all asking for the return of the animals. But by November 1st, it was all in vain. The DEC announced that they had euthanized both Peanut and Fred. Why? Because of the fear of rabies. According to them, Peanut bit someone in the department, so they had to test for rabies. Living animals cannot be tested for the disease, so they had to be euthanized. Mark Longo expressed his grief. He said the DEC was cruel. He accused the agency of excessive force. The story should have ended there. But then, the Republicans took note. And that's where the issue exploded. Peanut's death was not about public safety anymore. It was about democratic overreach. It turned into a symbol of government interference. Republicans chimed in on the injustice. Leading the cause was Tesla CEO Elon Musk. He posted several times about this incident, calling the government a quote-unquote killing machine. And it did not stop there. The Trump campaign then joined in.
So I know Don's fired about Peanut the squirrel. We were on the way down here from Cincinnati. He was like, is it really the case that the Democrats murdered the Elon Musk of squirrels? And I said, yeah, it sounds like, have you seen the videos of this squirrel? Yeah. He's a genius, or he was.
This is not the first time animals have featured in the presidential race, or this presidential race. In September, a video from Ohio's Springfield went viral. It claimed that immigrants killed ducks from the local park for food. Springfield police dismissed these rumors, But the Republicans went to town with it, portraying Donald Trump as the Messiah with AI-generated images of him on top of a cat, and even one where he's surrounded by ducks. Again, the message was simple. Immigrants did not just steal American jobs, they also stole America's pets. And Donald Trump would save them. So cats and dogs became a flashpoint back then, and now a squirrel is the headliner. It tells you what you need to know about American politics, really. Forget inflation, healthcare, or even foreign policy. This election has gone to the dogs, then cats and ducks, and now even squirrels. Have you heard of the Yiwu Index? Yiwu is located in China. It is one of the country's most popular wholesale markets. It sells goods to international retailers. In 2016, opinion polls predicted a win for Hillary Clinton, but Yiwu had a different opinion. They saw a different trend, the rising sale of Trump merchandise. So Yiwu thought that Trump would win, and he did. Hence the question, is election merchandise a reliable tool to predict polls? How big is it in this election? And which candidate is winning the merch battle? We decided to find out. Pins, posters, flags. Even these iconic Make America Great Again hats. Merchandise like these are a staple of the US presidential elections. Campaigns sell them, supporters buy them. But these items aren't just pieces of memorabilia. They're often seen as indicators of who is winning the election. Here in the United States, elections aren't just decided by votes. They're also decided by what I'm holding here. This is political merchandise, badges for Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. These serve as symbols of political allegiance and a public display of candidate support. But can the sales of these products alone determine the outcome of an election? Let's find out.
And make America great again.
Over the years, campaign merchandise has become a strategic tool. Surveys say 70% people buy political merch to influence others. 68% believe that buying it can affect election outcomes. Stores that sell merchandise agree with this. Reports say merchandise sales got it right 9 out of 11 times, meaning in 9 out of the last 11 elections, the candidate who sold more merchandise won. And which were the two exceptions? The year 2000 and 2016. Both these elections had something in common. The candidate with a popular vote lost. Experts say there is no correlation between sales and election results though. But in a battle as close as this one, it's hard to ignore how merch has become a measure of political momentum. The question then is, who has the momentum? Who is winning in terms of merchandise sales? On Amazon, it is Donald Trump. His merch sales are outperforming Kamala Harris's by a wide margin, almost by 5 times. For every piece of Harris merchandise being sold, there are 5 of Donald Trump. It's a staggering lead. Also because Trump has been longer in this race. Since the beginning of this year, Trump merchandise worth $140 million has been sold. Harris entered the picture only a few months ago. She sold items worth around $26 million. But here's the twist in the tale. The merchandise that's meant to be a symbol of belonging is also proof of America's dependence on China. The hats that say, "Make America Great Again," are making Chinese manufacturers bigger. And this is ironic, especially for candidates advocating Buy American policies. The soaring sales are fueling Chinese businesses. Chinese traders are pumping more and more merchandise into the American markets with the help of e-commerce websites. And they're finding millions of takers. That's because their products are cheap. Take the MAGA hat, for example. The Trump website sells it for $40. Chinese traders sell it for $4. That's 10 times lower. Same for Harris merchandise. Kamala hats on the campaign website sell for $47. On China's Temu, they sell for less than $3. That makes Chinese goods an obvious choice for most Americans. Look at this Trump hat. It says, "President Trump Save America." But this hat is made in China. And this is the Chinese interference that Americans must be investigating in this election, I guess. But Chinese or American, merchandise sales is a good reflection of voter enthusiasm, although experts caution against reading too much into it. because polling and other traditional methods remain the foundation of election predictions, and even they get it wrong way too often. So it may not predict the results, it may not even be made in America, but campaign merchandise does tell a story. It reflects the spirit of American elections. This election is very much about domestic issues like abortion or inflation. Foreign policy is just a footnote. So why should the world care about the result? Why should you care about it? Because the fallout could be global. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump represent two very different ideologies. Trump is an isolationist. He believes in using trade as a weapon. He's also not a fan of alliances, especially NATO. Harris, on the other hand, is less vocal on such issues. Her foreign policy is seen as Biden 2.0. If she wins, she'll be forced to handle two full-blown wars. Does she have the experience to do that? We'll have to wait and watch. But beyond the candidates, there are other reasons too. The US is the largest economy in the world. It is also the second largest trading country. America trades with more than 200 nations and regions. It makes up 9% of global trades. If the next president is protectionist, every country will feel the pinch. Same with climate change. The US is the second biggest emitter of greenhouse gases, but Trump doesn't believe in climate change. Last time he was president, he pulled his country out of the Paris Climate Agreement. If he wins again, will he repeat that? Will he roll back America's climate commitments? These are questions that will affect the entire world, but tonight we are only looking at the strategic fallout of the election result. What do other countries want? Who are they backing to win? Who do they want to win? Let's start with India. New Delhi does not need to pick a side. That's how stable ties are. There is bipartisan support for a long-term partnership with India. With Donald Trump, Prime Minister Modi has great chemistry. With Harris, he can hope for continuity. Like I said, she is Biden 2.0 or expected to be, and Biden did a lot for India-US relations. So either way, India is fine, but most other countries do have a definite pick. Western Europe and NATO will be hoping for a Harris win. You may remember what happened at the 2019 NATO summit in London. Western leaders got together to mock Trump. Their comments were caught on a hot mic. Again, the issue was ideology. Trump doesn't see the logic in defending countries on another continent. America first is his mantra, which is why Ukraine will also be wary of Trump. President Zelensky did meet him during his trip to New York, but that is unlikely to have moved Trump. He says he will end the war on day one in the White House. He hasn't said how, though. But chances are he will cut military aid to Ukraine, basically force Kiev to sue for peace. Now we come to West Asia. Israel has a very clear pick in this race. Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu have a great friendship. Trump moved the US embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. He also brokered the Abraham Accords between Israel and some Arab countries. So Netanyahu would like to have Trump back in the White House. If Biden was running, it may have been a bit different. Despite some tough words, Biden has basically given him endless support. He also keeps saying that he's a Zionist. But Kamala Harris is likely to be tougher on Israel. She may not say it during rallies, but by all indications, she'll put more pressure on the Israeli Prime Minister. And what about the Gulf states? Well, Saudi Arabia will be happy to see Biden out. Remember, Biden promised to turn Riyadh into a pariah. On his watch, the relationship broke down completely at one point. In comparison, Trump was a lot more friendly. He was president when the Khashoggi murder happened. Most Western countries isolated Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, but Donald Trump did not. Reports say he even bragged about saving MBS from isolation. So chances are Riyadh would like to see him back. So would North Korea. Kim Jong-un had 3 meetings with Donald Trump. Yes, none of them led to anything, but at least Kim was on the world stage. Harris, though, is expected to continue Biden's policy. Closer ties with South Korea and no talks with the North. But here's a fun fact. Kim's biggest ally wants the opposite. I'm talking about China. Donald Trump waged a trade war against China when he was president. He's promising a second round this time. More than 60% tariff on all Chinese imports. And this would be devastating. Chinese imports are worth more than $560 billion. Imagine a 60% tariff on all of that. China cannot afford it, especially in the current state of their economy. Having said that, Trump may not be eager to protect Taiwan. He doesn't want to defend NATO, so why would he help Taiwan? And Beijing knows this. They recently said that the US could discard Taiwan if Trump wins the election. So it's a question of priorities for China, trade or Taiwan. What do they want more? Of course, all of this is based on two assumptions. One, that Trump 2.0 will be Trump 1.0. If you listen to his rallies, that seems to be the case, but you can never be sure. The second assumption is that Kamala Harris will be Biden 2.0. Again, we can't be sure. Maybe Harris will come into her own as president. Maybe she will chart her own path. And if she does, these positions could change. Safe to say, it's a big week in geopolitics. All the global capitals will be watching Washington closely. Sadly, attacks on Hindu religious organizations are becoming far too common in various parts of the world. The latest incident is from Canada. Yesterday, 2 temples were attacked, the Hindu Sabha Mandir in Brampton, near the city of Toronto, and the Lakshmi Narayan Temple in Surrey, near Vancouver. 2 attacks in 2 different parts of Canada within a few hours of each other. Let's look at the Brampton attack first. We have videos from the scene which clearly show the perpetrators. Take a look at this first.
Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, ouch, ouch, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit,
As you can see, the attackers were Khalistanis. They're a group of separatists who want to carve out a separate state for the Sikh people. And they're prepared to attack Hindus to achieve their goals. The Khalistanis had gathered outside the Hindu Sabha Mandir in Brampton yesterday. They knew that there would be a lot of Hindus present. The High Commission of India in Ottawa had arranged for a consular camp at the temple. They were handing out certificates, necessary paperwork to help Indians in Canada. It's routine consular work, but it draws hundreds of people. Now, the High Commission knew that there was the possibility of danger, and they had asked for strong security measures at the event. But as you saw in the video, Canada took the warning lightly, and the result was chaos. After failing to prevent the entirely predictable attack, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau went into damage control mode. He put out this post on social media calling the acts of violence unacceptable. He added that every Canadian has the right to practice their faith freely and safely. But did you notice something? He did not really specify who committed the violence or highlight which group was attacked. All he did was spout generic statements. It was an Indian origin MP who had to point out the obvious, that the attack was orchestrated by Canadian Khalistani extremists. He said that they crossed a red line with their brazen attack this time, that they were being given a free pass under the guise of freedom of expression. It seems that this is obvious to everyone except Prime Minister Trudeau, who continues to try and shield his Khalistani vote bank. And this isn't even the worst of it. For that, you'll have to look at the second attack, the one in Surrey. Khalistanis had gathered outside the Lakshmi Narayan Temple in Surrey. They were protesting, so some Hindu temple goers held a counter-protest. Then we have videos like this emerging from the site.
What did we do? What did we do? What did we do?
Those people being tackled and arrested were Hindus. The Canadian police arrested 3 Hindu men. The police did not disclose the charges against them. As you saw, the men were violently tossed to the ground and then taken away. So Hindus are beaten up with sticks outside one Canadian temple and then arrested outside another. This is the state of Canada today. How did things get this bad? What has led to all the anti-Hindu sentiment in the country? The answer is quite simple. Trudeau and his government. Every other day, they paint India as some sort of enemy nation, and they keep hurling unfounded allegations at India. Last year, they claimed that India was involved in the killing of the Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. They have yet to offer any proof. And then last week, they pointed fingers at India's Home Minister Amit Shah, again without any proof. It's actually worse than the usual baseless allegations. Canada's Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister David Morrison contacted a foreign media outlet, America's Washington Post, and he told them that Shah was behind the plot to kill Nijjar. He did not make an official public announcement. He did not approach Canadian media. He just leaked this information to the Washington Post, again without any hard proof. India summoned a Canadian diplomat over this incident on Saturday.
It was conveyed in the note that the Government of India protests in the strongest terms to the absurd and baseless references made to the Union Home Minister of India before the committee by Deputy Minister David Morrison. In fact, the revelation that high Canadian officials deliberately leak unfounded insinuations to the international media as part of a conscious strategy to discredit India and influence other nations only confirms the view Government of India has long held about current Canadian government's political agenda and behavioral pattern.
It's this behavioral pattern that is fueling the unrest in Canada and emboldening the Khalistanis to attack Hindus, because they can clearly see that the Trudeau regime will support them no matter what.
It has to do with a little bit intelligence, and I have a piece of glass over here, and I don't have a piece of glass there, and I have this piece of glass here, but all we have really over here is the fake news, right? And to get me, somebody would have to shoot through the fake news. And I don't mind that so much, because I don't mind that. So I have a piece of glass here. And the problem with that glass is I don't look great on television when you have a 4-inch piece of glass that a howitzer can't go through. No, when you see yourself on television, you say, boy, you're really not very recognizable, to be honest with you, which is good. But here's the problem. So I have glass here, I have glass here. Now, I'm not worried about this. Look, what do I have? A couple of people. And they're friends, generally. There are a couple of people I don't like in that group, but that's like, no, but look at it. Look at it. I have nobody here. What do I need this piece? But where I think I do need a piece is here.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
Hello and welcome to the late night edition with me, Ayushman Singh Jamwal. The United States is set for D-Day on the 5th of November as voters will decide between Vice-President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump over who will be the 47th President of the United States. The campaign trail has been rife with controversy and inflammatory language from both sides, with Kamala Harris now launching a progressive campaign calling for the expansion of social welfare, the reinstatement of abortion rights, and economic growth for the poorest of the poor in the United States. Donald Trump has called for action against what he calls is the enemy within, calling for the largest mass deportation of illegal immigrants. But weak on policy details and high on rhetoric, that is the style of Donald Trump. He has cited the 4 years of his presidency, saying the economy was on a high and America's adversaries did not cross the red line, talking about the war in Ukraine, even talking about the attack on Israel by Hamas. But the old hits, ladies and gentlemen, of fake news media and rigged 2020 elections continue to feature in Trump's rhetoric, with Democrats now fearing another campaign to discredit the 2024 results and a repeat of the January 6 riots, which became a signature of Trump's presidency. But no matter what the ideology, ladies and gentlemen, the swing states and the Electoral College holds the key to victory. It is a unique system dating back almost 2 centuries, which is still a matter of debate and controversy even today in the United States. Now the candidates must secure 270 electoral votes, a majority of 538, to win the White House. Now, the winner-take-all is the approach in the majority of the states. Candidates with the most votes win all electoral votes. Now, California has the most electoral votes at 54, followed by 40 electoral votes in Texas. So, one big blue state and one big red state, that is Texas, and California, the state that is dominated by the Democrats. Arizona, Michigan, Florida, Georgia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin command 118 electoral votes combined. So a huge chunk coming in from the swing states. Now, on a tie of 269 versus 269 votes, the newly elected House of Representatives then picks the president. So when there is a tie in the Electoral College of 269 versus 269 votes, the newly elected House of Representatives will pick the 47th President of the United States. On the same tie of 269 versus 269 votes in the Electoral College, the Senate will then select the Vice President. Now, Donald Trump, remember, if you go back in American history, was the 5th president to lose the popular vote but win the elections because of his edge over Hillary Clinton in the Electoral College. Now, the last Republican to win the popular vote as well as the Electoral College was George W. Bush back in 2004, ladies and gentlemen. Now, both Barack Obama, remember, Barack Obama and Joe Biden have won the popular vote and the Electoral College. That is the situation currently in the United States. The entire Electoral College now deciding who will be the President of the United States. This has always been the system in the United States, which has led to bitter politics primarily in the swing states. Now, let's get a view from the United States. It is D-Day on the 5th of November. I'm joined by my colleague Akanksha Swaroop reporting from New York, one of the bluest of the blue states in the United States, a Democrat stronghold of New York, even though Donald Trump hails from New York himself. So Akanksha, what is the buzz? What are you getting when it comes to the electricity of the elections, especially from the Democratic heartland of New York?
Right, Ayushman. I think we've all throughout been talking about how this has been a nail-biting election, and